Hey there folks, it's Mark, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So this week was weird. I had the suspicion to be more transitional because the big album drop that made my life a lot more hectic occurred last Friday. I mean, seriously, 8 albums that I would otherwise want to cover. A situation not helped by me getting kind of sick, and what's depressing is that most of the albums aren't close to good. And you know what? For the most part, that's still all true. But I get the impression that this is a week that buries its biggest lead, and the sharper changes will take impact next week based off of what might happen here. And note that we're not explicitly talking about the top 10 right this second, although it is relevant. I mean, sure, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X featuring Billy Ray Cyrus is at number 1 still, thanks to the sales, the streaming, the YouTube, and a terrific radio run, but it's going to be hitting a behemoth next week, or we're going to be talking about later, that might stymie some of that momentum, for better or worse. For now, it's head and shoulders above Wow by Post Malone at number 2, which might have okay sales, but lagged in streaming and has wavered on the radio all week, only above Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee at number 3, because that song's airplay is in freefall. It actually has better sales and streaming this week. Then we got 7 Rings by Ariana Grande at number 4, which actually got a little bit of streaming recovery to compensate for radio and sales taking a serious downturn, which I would say makes it kind of vulnerable to Sucker by the Jonas Brothers up to number 5, but beyond really strong radio and okay sales, I've got no idea where its greater momentum's gonna come from, certainly not streaming. Still rose above Without Me by Halsey at number 6, which also saw a bit of a streaming rebound despite losing in other categories, which means I still think it's vulnerable to Dancing with the Stranger by Sam Smith and Normani holding firm at number 7, although not by much, given how that song only really has consistent airplay. Now, what's more of the story is our new entry into the top 10, and one I certainly did not expect. Talk by Khalid at number 8. Yeah, outside of the week of his album bomb, without much sales, he's got a lot of streaming and radio traction. It's a shame the song's kind of lousy, but this might actually have the groundswell in order to stick around. Hell, it got past Bad Guy by Billie Eilish at number 9, where the sales are alright, and the streaming is huge, but the radio is lagging behind so badly that when its streaming momentum dries up, it could be in real trouble. And finally, for a song that actually has radio in a similar situation, we've got Middle Child by J. Cole at number 10, which still has airplay traction and okay streaming, but the sales, they're non-existent. Go figure. Now this takes us to our losers and dropouts, which is one of those cases where I think that there should be more of a story here, but there just isn't. As I predicted last week, Tequila by Dan and Shay is gone again, but let me ask, does anybody really care that much that, say, MIA by Bad Bunny and Drake is gone too? Or that Money by Cardi B is finally out? Maybe it's just the group that I hang around, but neither song seems to have been all that compelling or interesting to talk about, for good or bad reasons. And when you look at our losers, again, it's hard to care that much. We got our debuts falling off naturally, like SOS by the late Avicii and Aloe Black going to 87, and Boy With Love by BTS featuring Halsey sliding down to 40. I honestly thought that song would have had a bit more traction, and the continued collapse for Blackpink's Kill This Love down to 86. But beyond that, Racks in the Middle by the late Nipsey Hussle featuring Roddy Ricch and Hit Boy fell down to 51, and One That Got Away by Michael Ray slid down to 99. Good, but beyond that, there's just not much here. Now, as for our gains and returning entries, again, the weird feeling, this feels like a reset to an equilibrium that's never properly existed in 2019. Why else, when you look at our returns, are we getting Calma by Pedro Capo and Farruko back at 71, or Secreto by Anuel AA and Karol G at 83, or especially Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby at 96. Hell, even our returns from last week rebounded. Clout by Offset and Cardi B surged up to 39, I'm So Tired by Loave and Troye Sivan rose to 81, and On My Way to You by Cody Johnson hit 89. Beyond that, well, I already mentioned Khalid's Talk, and we had debuts like Love Ain't by the Eli Young Band rise up to 68, and Hey Look Ma, I Made It by Panic at the Disco up to 80, as well as some continued gains for Pop Out by Polo G featuring Little TJ to 60, but the rest just don't give me much to be excited about. Sure, I still like Pure Water by DJ Mustard and Migos up to 23, and I'm not really going to complain much about Con Calma by Daddy Yankee and Snow up to 34, but does anybody really want to see Florida Georgia Line get another crack at success success would talk you out of it, rising to 78? That album already tanked pretty hard. Let's not see them get another second wind off of a profitable single. Now, thankfully, we've only got 6 new arrivals this week. No ideal hit or world hit this week, guys. I've just got way too much to catch up on. But we're starting with a song that's literally so big that it landed its chart entry early. Number 100, Me by Taylor Swift featuring Brendon Urie.
And I promise that nobody's gonna love you like me.
Okay, I'll be honest. This is not what I was expecting to come from Taylor Swift post-Reputation era. Maybe it was just me, but you'd think the back to your roots pivot would come naturally, come easy. Not a team up with Brendon Urie of Panic at the Disco for a song that seems rooted in the broad theatricality that informed more of his last album than anything Taylor Swift has ever done. Well, okay, with the marching band snares and the cringeworthy talking on the hook, it does remind me more than it should of Shake It Off. But again, at least that embrace of theatricality, it might be natural for both artists, but that may be part of the problem for me. There's an old-fashioned plasticity to this song that feels like a shell of the organic detail and edge that gave even Taylor Swift's bad song some presence in pop music. And yet the production here isn't lush or saturated enough to emulate some of those old big band tones. Even the horn melody sounds suffocated and airless, and placing the vocal squeaks at repeated syllables right at the front of the mix, it doesn't match with anything that's characterized the better writing of Taylor Swift or Brendon Urie in recent years. I could have sworn this was a studio creation intended for Katy Perry or something. But no, outside of producer Joel Little, this was written by Brendon Urie and Taylor Swift themselves. And somehow has wound up being the most sterile and yet garish thing I've heard from them to date. I mean, it's not offensive, but I kind of wish it was. At least that'd be interesting, because this isn't all that good. Number 96, Shotta Flow by NLE Choppa. Okay, previously unknown artist who's from Memphis and isn't yet out of his teens. I think I've heard this before. Hell, I think the surprise here is that it's not really a trap song. No, with that spare piano line and lumpy bass beat, it's a lot more reminiscent of No Flex Zone by Ray Shrimmer, with the NLE Choppa barking over a song that doesn't really have a hook. It almost feels more like an extended freestyle, which might explain lines like "I'm super hot like a frying pan" or "your bitch sucking dick like a Kool-Aid pickle." Actually, everything he rhymes with that in his second verse, I'm torn on being genuinely cringy or just kind of hilarious. I guess if there was something beyond just pure aggro and a few flow change-ups to make me think there would be more to this, it would be one thing, but then when you realize the content's not all that distinctive or compelling, even not being your standard trap song, it's just not all that interesting. I mean, it's not terrible, but I didn't like it when Ray Shrimmer did it, so this isn't that good or memorable either. Number 93, Love Someone by Eldredge. Okay, honest question. Why is Eldredge still releasing songs from his self-titled album that dropped in 2017? Now, don't get me wrong, I tend to like this guy more than I probably should because he's got a keen ear for melody and a real sense of humor, and it can seem a little bit more genuine when he's got his vulnerable side, but that album never seemed to have the sticking power it should have, and his choice of singles did seem a little questionable beyond the lead-off single. Now, granted, he got a little bit of virality from making this a goofy, soft-focused, faux romantic video dedicating it to his dog, which makes the third verse a little bit awkward, but this is a better cut from the album, I will say that, even if I think the percussion is kind of overproduced with all the hand claps. The acoustic guitars, the pedal steel, they add some genuine warmth, and I appreciate how he still goes for a big hook. Hell, on some level in the composition, this isn't that far removed from an old Dominion song, which makes me think I'd probably like that band more if they had an organic groove every once in a while. Now, let me make this abundantly clear, this is not better than Something I'm Good At, which really should have been a way bigger hit, or even Haven't Met You or Cycles from that last album, but you know what? Love Someone might do okay, and for Eldredge, I'm fine with that. It's a good song. Number 90, Slide by French Montana featuring Blueface and Lil Tjay. I mean, there's a limit to how annoyed I can really be about French Montana somehow getting another song to chart. If he's gonna keep trying to snag guest appearances to nab him hits, so long as the song's okay, I'm not gonna complain that much. And I still remember how much I mostly liked Unforgettable for everything that wasn't French Montana, so can Blueface and Lil Tjay do the same thing here? Honestly, I'm not sure that's possible, because there's a lot more French Montana trying and failing to be interesting over a rather gratuitous sample of Snoop Dogg's Serial Killer, to the point where he handled the entire hook, which, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not like French Montana is a force of personality or something. And sadly, with Lil Tjay drowning in autotune, and Blueface sadly reminding me that an offbeat flow is only interesting if you're gonna do something with it, and the content not rising above generic bragging and attempts to hook up, I just want to go back and listen to the vintage Snoop Dogg song that it sampled. So yeah, if French Montana is expecting this to be Unforgettable Part 2, he might be in for a rude awakening, because this is not that interesting. Number 75, Before I Let Go, Homecoming Live by Beyoncé. So look, Lemonade won me over on Beyoncé to the point where I absolutely get her appeal and I can respect what she delivers. And I also know that her commitment to her live shows deserves a ton of attention and respect as well. That said, I wasn't really interested in covering the Beyoncé live album for really the same reason I rarely, if ever, cover live songs. If I'm reviewing a live mix, I actually want the experiencing it of it doing it live, not just a recording of the live sound where it's not going to be as good as in the studio. But this is actually a little different. It's actually a studio mix of a loose cover of a Maze song from 1981 with some added production from Tjay and a rap verse. And look, I've said before that Beyoncé seems a little less engaged whenever she makes this brand of dance song, and for as perfunctory as her verse kind of feels on this, it's hard to avoid that same feeling, especially with how flat the horn and guitar pickups sound against that trap groove. Now granted, if this was the live recording at the end of a performance, the fact that she sounds as clear and tight as she does here, it would be a credit to her skills, but it is a studio mix, and as it is, well, alright, look, I went back to the original Maze song with some pretty slick early 80s funk and R&B vibes, and the mixing of the guitar and bass just had way more groove for me, and I wish Beyoncé had been able to capture at least some of that. And don't get me wrong, for her fan base, I think this will work, but to me, I'm just not as impressed. It's not for me. But you know what, if you want to talk about a song where everything went off the rails, and I don't know if it's for anyone, number 17, Earth by Lil Dicky. You know, at some point you need to confront the fact that most of the celebrities you might idolize just have terrible goddamn taste, both in music and people, as that is pretty much the only reason I can see why anybody has involved themselves with this. Either that or Lil Dicky is the sort of blackmail material that can embarrass the KGB, but we just need to start with the conceptual failure right out of the gate. A big, environmentally conscious charity single intended to raise money for Leonardo DiCaprio's foundation, all about loving the earth and all of its creatures. And when I say loving, Lil Dicky appeared to take this as a cavalcade of the most juvenile animal sex references and little else about environmental consciousness. We didn't even get a cheap line about telling kids to recycle. If anything, it's kind of worse because in between all the animal sex references, Lil Dicky drops one of his most confused and badly structured verses to date, where he hopes that reality isn't a simulation, which would kind of undercut the entire premise of your song, or how the few problems he lists we should all just chill. He's got more lines referencing his dick and all the types of orgasms that people can have that focus on the topic of the song. Then we have all the guests playing all of humanity's wildest creatures all around us, and while I might get kind of a bemused smirk at seeing Haley Steinfeld describe herself as a common fungus, or Adam Levine describe himself as a vulture, or Lil Yachty describe himself as HPV, or Kevin Hart say that he's Kanye West, because apparently Kanye has enough dignity to say no to this, and yet apparently Kanye's name is a punchline. But then we get weird lines like Lil Dicky forgiving Germany, as if the Nazi problem hasn't emigrated stateside. Oh, and the production's crap too. A rinky-dink tropical mix that sounds like a 2016 leftover, Lil Dicky trying to auto-croon over it, with too much reverb slapped over everyone else's voice, because that's how these We Are the World ripoffs are always produced. But you know what, say what you will about that 1985 self-obsessed train wreck of a song, there was at least a hook with some real star power behind it. This treats everything, including its cause, like a bad joke, which is pretty much the opposite of how causes like this you think should be treated. Now, at least Freaky Friday on some level knew that it was a novelty song. With this, you can tell Lil Dicky thinks that he's making a statement, and considering it's an abortion of epic proportions, it only really reveals how much of a hack he truly is. Cause yeah, this is beyond garbage. It's more of a pollutant than what he speaks against. And yeah, worst of the week by a mile. Probably one of the worst of the year if it sticks around, without question. Now the best, not much here. I'm giving it to Brett Eldredge and Love Someone, which yes, might be partially due to the video, but in comparison with most of the rest of these videos, there's credit where it's due. Next week, See, I don't know. I don't know how much chart impact is going to be driven by the album releases I'm probably going to have to cover. And outside of Taylor Swift probably making a run at #1, I'm not sure what else is confirmed. We'll have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.